going to show the process in R, how we can make the cumulative analysis for any website. Basically, the reason why we want to do this is to analyze the content that has the highest traction from the beginning, and as well as the evergreens or the long valued content. So we have here the script from that we are basically scraping data or getting data from the GA. Then we have also BigQuery, and then also our in-house tool that we are using, the Domo. So right now, can I start to normally going through the, okay, so I would like to welcome guys here. Hello, Lucas. And hope you had a very good day. So welcome to this part of Analytics Jam about the cumulative analysis. This was the idea we in the MashMetrics, how we can get better information about how the various content on the website is doing, especially also for the SEO activities, but as well as what content drive the long-term value, as well as to show the content that has the highest traction from the beginning, that we can generate more of that content to the future. So let me walk through the script. We again used the R script, which is basically scraping data or getting data from Google Analytics. We are using the package Google Analytics R from Mark Edmondson. Very powerful package. Here we are basically authenticating. This works based on your Google Cloud project, or you can also via Google OAuth based on your email account. This is where we need to generate the view ID, which we will use. That's basically the ID you will find in the view settings in the Google Analytics account. And here we are generating the query where we are getting the data. So we have defined this date range from January 1st, 2019 till the end of the March of 2020. The data set looks like this. Basically, each row with the date and a particular page. That's where we are getting this information: date, landing page path, and unique page use. Why we are getting the landing page path is that this is and unique page use is that we are trying to get the information about the pages where people landed, which was the first page from in the first session. That's what we think basically that's very important to generate, where the people were basically interested in that particular content. However, I need to note here that many times, or we can run this. And what can be a problematic, and let's make sure that you will avoid this, that we can see here two same rows just for the same page, also for the same date, just because they differ with the parameter. So that is what we are basically doing here in the next line, where we are basically removing all the parameters from the landing page path. That's very important because we want to group all those pages that are unique together and summarize and aggregate the unique pages that just make sense, because this way Google Analytics sees them as an individual pages. So, and that's not correct. Okay, so this line is basically doing the elimination and removing of those parameters. Okay, then we are continuing. What this function is doing is that it is removing the parameters, but it is not yet aggregating the data. So when we do this, then this just eliminates this just eliminated the parameters. However, it did not yet group the page. So this is what we are basically doing in this passage, where we are grouping by date and landing page path, which is our page, and we are summarizing it by the sum of unique page views. So basically those single pages that contained before parameters now are grouped into one, and all the page views that were there spreaded are now grouped into the metric page views. Also, many times in Google Analytics, especially in Google Analytics data, and especially for the landing page path, can be a problem with the not set. So this is that's happening when the event is usually the first hit in the session. Now we are removing these values from the landing page path, because we want to work with the data that are valid and accurate, and we can get some meaning from it, because from this not set we cannot get any value. Likewise, here we are removing the not set. In the next filter, we are removing also the pages that are somehow from the backend developers staff that are not really valuable for us as well. So we are removing them as well. And here, this was for the client who is focusing on the blog part, where he wanted to generate the insight. So we have include just the blog part, and it would work this way.
Mail, could you go back to that script for a second? I had a question.
Yeah.
The first one, filter landing page equal to, oh, that does not equal not set. I'm sorry. Yeah. Gotcha. Now I get it. And so that's great. So within that second line, it's going to look through the page path or the URL. And if it contains real estate, archive, or APIs, it's just not going to include that in this report.
Yeah, that's basically because those
clean it up.
Those pages that were like of course, first of all the time, I will check the overall data set and see if there are some specific patterns that we can use, or the pages that are not of the real value because they have like really small amounts of views, and also the structure of the URL where was telling me basically that this URL is not something that should be even in Google Analytics, for example, because it was like sites, proxy, APIs, or so. So that was not really usable. But of course, this depends also on the client. This would be also our approach to contact the client and ask him whether these URLs are valuable or not. It usually always should start there to have this discussion with the client, whether those pages are any of value. For this particular analysis, and especially when it was focused on the blog, I basically focus on that. The reason why I do it this way is also that some of the pages that contained also blog has this APIs, archive real estate patterns in the URL.
But that's a really good way if, you know, if your data isn't necessarily as easy as looking for /blog in the URL.
Yeah.
Let's say you almost even wanted to run this analysis on all of the different content on your website, but maybe not the product pages, or not maybe you know, the About Us page. You could use both of these in order to really, you know, hone in on the pages that you want to get the cumulative analysis on. So
absolutely, and this is also very, I honestly believe that this is also very important part to focus on the URL structure, because of course this this function string detect is basically similar to what we use in Google Analytics contain. This is the expression that we look for the block in this pattern, because the URL structure was not really unified, and it was a kind of a mess, to be honest. So that's why I am using the contain. It would be best if we can have a stronger specification, but it would contain many different options. Okay, so we are going to the second part, where we are going to start to, because in the first part we've been querying the data and do some data manipulation. Just we can start to use creating the cumulative sum for our page use. So what we are basically doing, the AV is a function from tidyverse package that is allowing us to do the cumulative sum for the metric we want to analyze. Here we are creating new column within our data, GA data. So here we will see not 3, but 4 variables. And here we are taking the page views that we want to sum in a cumulative way for individual page path. That's important, that this we want to group it for individual page path, because normally if we remove this, it will do the cumulative sum for every single row, but we want to spread it, the rows per our individual page. So when we will do this, let me this, yeah. So it will basically create let me show you. It will create the this one. Second, we'll show you the data, how it will looks. All right. So this is what we have. Basically, we will filter based on the particular page, and we can start to sum. So here we can see 4, 4, and here we're already 8, and it's adding up for the particular page. Here, of course, you can do you can have more dimensions based on which you can group. You can have even here, you can query device categories, for example. It can be interesting how people assess this from different devices, either tablet or mobile or desktop. But I believe what would be the most important are the default channel groupings, basically, because we would like to maybe differentiate and see how people are going from the organic search, because there is maybe when we are investing money for SEO activities, and we would like to know whether the content is growing as we want, or it needs another work, or if it is going horizontally, or it is growing really exponentially. That's what we would like to definitely know.
I also think it's very useful because, for example, we had some similar analysis at our newspaper, and we realized that there is some evergreen content which is performing well in May every year, the same kind of content, and we are because we have always seen some kind of peak. And I also think it's maybe interesting to make like some peak analysis, because maybe there is some sensitivity connected with the month of the year. And after we realized that in May one content is performing better, we looked on that content, and we realized it's educative content about taxation system in Austria. And we realized that in May many people are doing their diploma thesis at Economical University of Vienna, and they are starting with research in May. So and this peak analysis helped us to make better content every May every year, basically, because of those students. And our marketing department then went to university, and we sold them more subscription, basically, because it was very relevant for those people. So I think it may be also it might be also good to observe the content in the way of peaks, not only cumulative, but just small node.
Absolutely. Would be
awesome.
To be honest, it would be very interesting to understand the overall potential, what the page is basically getting in the search. But I think so that definitely there is a seasonality in the content that people are basically looking for. And that's why it's definitely important why we also focused not only on the cumulative, but also the first 30 days, for example, just to know which content can grow faster. There are some patterns, but definitely if there is a seasonality for the particular content, like the diploma, where people are preparing for their ending assignments, and they need to look for the particular content, that's absolutely brilliant when you can basically transfer or translate it to the actual insights and act based on that information. So absolutely, this analysis is basically something we are starting to showcase also to clients, and this is basically where we can get also the traction and understanding, because each client I think will require a bit of different attitude or different information they expect from this analysis. But newspapers are, I believe, a great example of how such analysis can be very, very useful.
And also to your point, Lucas, the I would say it seems like 80% of our analysis is probably more time series showing the spike and things like that. We kind of came up with this because it was that other way to look at it, you know? So, okay, every once in a while you're going to have spikes, but from a very cumulative perspective, and then also from the day, you know, a piece of content was launched, did it see a big spike and then die? Did it, you know, was it kind of dead for a while and then it saw a spike, but then it died? Or does it continue to, you know, continue to get more and more and more and more content every month? What we found is when we would go through Google Analytics and let's just say, look at 90 days and then kind of look at that trend by page, it would give us a very different answer actually, because it would just show you, here's the popular pages, you know, let's say the top 10 or however far we wanted to go down of traffic. But not necessarily, you know, did that page used to get a lot of traffic? So actually this is a bad result, or, you know, is that actually on a growth pattern? So,
yeah, that's actually true, because it depends. In our case, we had the challenge how to improve with our content subscription. So we were trying to find something in the data and then we interpret it. In this case, probably you are trying to make evaluation of your effort and also how to improve it. But on the first place is evaluation.
Yeah,
but cool.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it always depends. This is the swear jar, I know, but it always depends on the type of the industry and business, because every organization has its own goals. And as for example, for the particular client, this one is for generating the interest. Whenever I can think of in the newspapers, it's most also really tied to the bottom line, because you are trying to sell the subscriptions, and that's basically the content is very valuable. It's a hardcore of the business basically. So yeah, every organization can have different purpose with this, but I think so the thinking behind it, what they can get from that, is one of the important things that they can think of a bit differently from what they have basically in GA.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, you also have to think. I think what audience are you going to present it? Because well, in some audiences they will present this spike analysis, and probably in another audiences like C-level management is better cumulative view, because then you can see like more the effort overall.
Absolutely. So just to maybe
interrupting.
just to maybe explain another part of the script, what we are doing here. So what we need to do to make work our cumulative analysis is that we need to simply sum all the rows for the particular group of pages. So we need to also rank them based on the date. The reason we need to rank them is that the ranking function will basically rank the particular rows from 1 to 3, 4, and so on. And these rankings we will use as dimensions and legend in our plots, because we will not focus on the particular pages in our x-axis, but we will showcase these rankings as day 1, day 2, and then we can spot what page basically has a traction or the interest was decreasing. So that's why it is important for us to rank it. And it's a simple function. Of course, you will receive the code where you can directly use it either from BigQuery or Data Studio. And basically, this is where we are finishing our analysis. I have also here another query, which is basically focusing on another data set where we are basically generating insights for first 30 days for all the landing pages. Just we could analyze which pages has a best average over first 30 days. And we can maybe find ideas about what content maybe people would like to receive, or which content is maybe getting a good voice and buzz on the internet. And even if we can segment it based on the dimensions like device categories or channel groupings for the organic search, there we can also spot how we are also managing our SEO activities and what direction, because it's difficult also for the agencies who focus on SEO to prioritize the stuff. So it is important to know where we are focusing our attention. So, but our end data set is this last sentence where we are basically getting all the information to the form we need. And we have, from there, we have several options. We can even plot the data set in R, which is ggplot, with the help of the ggplot, for example. But it can be problematic for the rest of the company to spot the insights or work with that. Not everybody has basically installed R. So we need to think about the ways how we can present this to people who will need those information, but don't have or don't need the direct access to the R. So we are gladly working a lot of time with the BigQuery. So here we can see the query or function to send the data from R to BigQuery, where we will create a data set, and from there we will get the information to the Data Studio very easily. The beauty of this is that in R we will have scheduled on the cron. Each day new data will come to BigQuery, and the BigQuery data source will be updated also within the Data Studio. So we will have always the freshest data. But also we as a company at MashMetrics, we have invested into the Domo visualization stuff, and we are sending the data directly from R to Domo. It is very powerful that we can use our work in R and send it to the appropriate platforms when it is very easy to generate the insights for the rest of the team that they need the information. And this is how I showed you before as well. This is how the data are looking in also in R, also in BigQuery, and also in Domo, because it's the same data set. this is why we needed to have the ranking. Basically, the ranking is done for the sooner date, and we are going to the latest. And this
kind of in another way, essentially what we're doing is, instead of showing this data by date, right,
yeah,
we're re-ranking it to say, okay, I want to see this data by the first date this content was launched, the second date the content was launched, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, which of course is going to be different for every single one of these pieces of content.
exactly.
So yeah, just wanted to.
That's basically the reason, the main reason, because every single article or blog post has a different publishing date, and we would not be able to analyze the individual start of those pages. So that's why we needed to rank for each particular article. The ranking is 1 for the first day it was published. So when I pick here, not this one, but I will use, for example, this day, we have different dates for when it is the first one, and that's why.
Sorry, I think it's sorry to mention it, but it's like a similar when there was like I think Financial Times has written an article how Corona was spreading around the world. They also kind of normalized this from the day zero everywhere, so make it everywhere day zero. So I think it's something similar that you basically try to normalize and to distinguish day zero for kind of every blog post, right?
Yeah, basically from the time the article is published, that's the date when in our data set we label it as a first in rank, and then it's basically looking at the particular dates and assigning the ranking. That's basically because we are using this in our axis. That's cool. Of course, this is the initial version. This can be updated to the stuff. It can be even grouped based on like 30 days all the time, that you can see. You don't have to have all of the numbers in the x-axis, but we can have it grouped by 30 days, which can basically mimic the 1 month from the start, and so on and so on. That's why we have also created such a visualization, which is basically focusing only for the first 30 days, because we wanted to spot the differences, how specific content is behaving. The reason here we have picked several pages, because we have like almost 200 page posts. So it was not possible to be labeled here. So it would be normally grouped and plotted from the highest cumulative sum. However, what we can basically spot here is that there is a content. This one was the most valuable for or this is basically evergreen content, because the line is going quite steeply all the time. Here, I think so. Here I would stop for a while, and I would say the important thing is also to have your team to discuss what you basically expect from the particular posts and blogs, because it's very important to, because not every blog will have the same amount of attention, but also every single blog can have different meaning what we are trying to achieve. Also, we need to specify which kind of blog has high amount of SEO activities, for example, that we would basically want it to grow exponentially, because this is nicely steep or positive line. However, here we have also content that is quite long time on the market or on the website, but it's not growing so steep. There can be many different reasons why. Maybe this is going really organically, and this is maybe content there where are spending some time of the team on the SEO and the delivering or generating the page views, not only organic way, but it can be also paid or referral or social stuff. So that's very important to know which content is if it is basically, if it has basically the same amount of attention or not. What I would like to
may I ask?
Yeah,
Are you also using sometimes trend lines, or not really? Because in this case, I don't know, maybe it's only like it, maybe it just look like that, but I would use, for example, trend line for the red curve, and then I would check the areas which are under it and over it, and I would try to analyze why the area is over it. What happened? Which month was it? Maybe what happened with that month? Because I can imagine this: the 10 things you can do will literally change your brain. I think, if I'm correct, maybe from day 57, 64, it's a little bit steeper, and I would just probably check. Now I'm curious what happened on day 57. Maybe it was October, and maybe it was some kind of depressive month, and maybe people start to check this kind of content for that. So I'm just curious if you sometimes use trend line.
No, we are not right now for this using the trend lines. Basically, me personally, I am taking this line as for me as a individual trend lines for the particular page. Yeah, we can, for example, here we can see the specific the trend is here, for example, starting to grow on. It could be, for example, some maybe some campaign or something that could generate the spike. But the good thing is that from that point, it's still keeping or going higher. Here we can see this is basically what I see as a positive line, which is the trend is still going up. And we can assume, I believe, what could be the great next step for this, but it can be quite difficult to do it for all of the pages. But you can basically also predict the way the data or the page will grow. We can use the forecasting methods for this, and we can basically get the information we have right now. We can also spot the seasonality. That can be also very interesting for the newspapers. And we can basically plot not only what we have right now, but what it can be within the 6 months or 1 year. The period would be specified for the data we have. But I believe that for this particular case, we didn't use the trend lines. Absolutely. If there is I believe it's also very challenging to visualize all of the pages. So I would suppose that internally, I believe it would internally would be great to classify the importance not only based on the highest page views, but also companies have specific content that they want to visualize and analyze whether it is going bad or going good. Because really, like in this case, there are really lots of blog posts, and it would be really also for the platforms, it can be quite difficult to run, because for example, data sets I worked before for this particular client, the rows were around 1 million. So it was not really straightforward. But I would like to stress one thing also within the BigQuery, that it's not so sexy as in the Domo, for example, but you can reuse this information also within the Data Studio with the BigQuery, data source. And what I basically also liked here, this is for our internal staff, that we can basically pick only the landing pages we, for example, want to visualize. Let's plot only this and this. This is also very nice example how we can do the simple stuff or powerful stuff with the free, basically with the free tools, and send it to the Data Studio and visualize. We build it here also with that you can use different metrics. We have here, we are visualizing pages, but we can have also individual users that we can analyze. So if you have everything prepared here in R, the script I will share with you, then only thing what we need to do to make it totally automated is just to set up the cron, but this we can discuss after the call, because of course this data needs to be refreshed, and that would be basically it. I would be very interesting. What do you think about all this solution basically? Is that something that can be really valuable also for you, Lucas, in the newspapers, or?
Yeah, definitely. This is also like valuable. It is for our newsroom. This is the best motivation factor actually. How many visitors your page is going to have, and how many subscription you're going to sell. Because, and sometimes it's hard to convince our C-level management to invest more into SEO, and this cumulative analysis can be a great argumentation for that. Basically, if you can argument in the last 3 years this article has got so many visitors because of SEO, and let's imagine how much we could reach if our implementation was even better. It could be really good to. Do
you think it could be also interesting to use this cumulative analysis also for the authors or journalists, for example?
The thing is, I'm not allowed, and I'm not doing this analysis of people. I'm also only analyzing content. In Austria, it's a law in Austria. Basically, there are two strange in this. But it is agreement that people are not being ranked somehow. So
interesting.
Yeah. No, because we are newspapers, so we can not only write things which are bringing subscription, but because we are serious subscription, and somewhere in Africa something bad happens, we also have write about that. And this article, for example, if in Cambodia there is some killing or shooting or whatever, we have to write about it, but it's not interesting for Austrian audience. So in that way, we cannot rank people in the, you know, in some extent.
Mm-hmm.
But for content and for topics, it's definitely perfect thing, because you can with this you don't need to do only content analysis, but also topic analysis, because you can basically cluster all the content types, and then you can see, like, let's say how Corona is performing SEO wise in the last 3 months. How are the people bored, or how are the trends basically? Or maybe for Corona you don't need it because you will find it in Google Trends, but for some smaller topics which you need to discover only, this can be really good. For example, golf, or cultural events and Fridays, you know, like or at weekends, you can segment this, and I think this is the true power, because at least from the perspective of newspaper, sometimes topic is more interesting than the content itself, because topic is like, we also try to write like series more. So every weekend we try to explain you one concrete story which is part of the bigger series, and this is like actually also like this also would be powerful for that.
Very interesting. Very, very much thank you, Lucas. This was very great to hear also your experience and how you could basically, and because newspapers are definitely a great platform as they have lots of data, and also the different, or the model is usually many times built on the viewability. So even tough, it's maybe difficult for newspapers. They are maybe not so focused on the SEO itself, because there is a lot also strong brand connection, right? Yeah. So that's why I believe that for newspapers it can be definitely important to looking for such cumulative analysis for the topics, which can basically specify the intent of the users, what they basically are interested in. So very, very nice, very nice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm hoping you'll have some other peers and friends to talk to on, on one of these as well, Lucas. So spread the word.
Yeah, I tried to invite a few friends of mine, but it's Friday night.
Yeah, so. For you guys, it's a little bit difficult. And to your friends' credit, I think they signed up, because we did get a little uptick in registrations. But I sent you the video from last week, and we're going to try to condense that, put it up to have blog posts as well, so you can share that around.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you very much, Lucas, for stopping by.
Or if you figured out a way to get on Zoom without showing your name and number and stuff, thank you for joining. We just don't see you. But yeah, everyone have a...
Oh, well, home office, and I'm not so pretty tonight.
Yep. Well, hope everybody has a great weekend. 6 feet away from others.
Take care. Take care. Ciao, ciao.
Bye. Great job, Mayo. Great job, as always. Ciao.
Oh, thank you, Thomas.